Another impasse at the United Nations in New York as the world's 6 major powers debate what to do about Iran's unwillingness to stop enriching uranium. But the clock is ticking. Jerusalem is becoming impatient as the day when Tehran may have the instrument to wipe Israel off the map, as President Mahmoud Ahmadinejad so charmingly put it, draws closer.
We believe it's going to be quite a while before they have a bomb, but might not be that long before they have a device. A bomb is something you deliver on a missile and aircraft, and it has to be much more robust. A device is simply something that you can explode in a hole in the ground.
I'm Colin Chapman, and this is Agenda with George Friedman, talking to me about what Stratfor thinks is likely to happen in the next few weeks about the Iran issue.
Well, the only thing we hear, which is that the Israelis have set February as, in their mind, a time when very powerful sanctions should come to place on Iran. With the Russians and the Chinese not cooperating, putting those sanctions into place will be difficult. The United States will make some gestures at not so effective sanctions. And the real question will be, will the Israelis accept that as Obama fulfilling his promise to Israel on the subject, or will they say that the U.S. broke the promise and they're going to proceed on their own?
In the last few days, the atmosphere in Tehran has been tense. Death to America was the message from mourners at the funeral of Masoud Ali Mohammadi, the nuclear scientist who was blown up by an improvised explosive device outside his home. The Iranian regime says a US-based pro-monarchy group controlled by the CIA was to blame. Washington dismissed the allegation as complete nonsense. Iran also reacted angrily to comments by General David Petraeus, head of Central Command, who said in a CNN interview that Iran could certainly be bombed if necessary. And then there were media reports that US deployment of the so-called Buster bomber needed to penetrate deep underground targets had been put off until the end of the year.
That is perhaps the most classified information, both on the Israeli and the American side. And anyone who is quoting American officials are probably quoting disinformation. No one knows if those bombs are ready or not. But the Israelis have an option, and that's the nuclear option. And the United States would be horrified to see that happen, Israel as well, perhaps. But if Israel is genuinely concerned about an Iranian nuclear device, they have a way to prevent it. But even if Israel simply tried a conventional airstrike, that's not where the problem would occur. The problem would occur with the Iranian response. And the Iranian response would be to destabilize Iraq, unleash Hezbollah, which is a very sophisticated terrorist organization, and ultimately to mine the Straits of Hormuz. So the issue is not whether Israel is capable of carrying out the attack by itself, but whether it's capable of dealing with the consequences of the attack, to which the answer is no.
And if the Iranians believe that action by Israel is imminent, then they would take that step, wouldn't they?
That's precisely what we would expect. Now, the Foreign Minister Mataki has made it clear that he doesn't expect an Israeli strike. But of course, he doesn't really know that. It really comes down to this. The Israelis feel much less dependent on the United States today than they did 10 years ago or 20 years ago, and they are. In this situation, they can act themselves to solve their problem. That, in turn, creates an American problem, and the Israeli position may well be that the Americans should deal with this themselves. If that's the case, it will hurt U.S.-Israeli relations deeply, but it will certainly deal with the Iranian situation. And that really is what we're facing here. This situation is devolving increasingly on what Israel wants, how long it thinks it has before it has to act, and whether it believes that the Obama administration is serious.
I'm Marla Dial with a preview of the coming week. Big items this weekend were a foreign ministers meeting between Asian and Latin American leaders and Ukraine's presidential elections on Sunday. But a number of meetings over the weekend were to be focused on how various players are getting along. Foreign ministers from South Asian states and Iran were set to discuss cooperation in Afghanistan. The two governing parties in Zimbabwe were attempting to resolve their differences, and so were the main parties in Germany's governing coalition. while Turkey and Israel were attempting to smooth over relations that have been rocky of late. Next, Armenian President Serge Sarkisian visits Moscow following last week's visit by Russia's foreign minister to Yerevan, and the government in Tokyo is due to announce a restructuring plan for faltering Japan Airlines. The Nagorno-Karabakh conflict is on the agenda when OSCE officials meet with Armenia's president and foreign minister, and the status of Nigeria's ailing president is still up for discussion in a federal court. Finally, in Latin America, Bolivia's president takes another oath of office before talks with his Argentine counterpart over natural gas.